Without it.
Want to make sure all those watching online can hear you.
Okay. For all y'all online. Call to order.
All right. In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of meetings and agendas were posted and furnished to all news media and persons requesting notification.
Approval of the meeting from the notes from October 11th, 2024. Wait, 2023.
Move for approval.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. The subcommittee will hear from the public on any subject other than the projects being presented today. Anyone wishing to speak must have signed up and will be allowed 2 minutes to speak. Per parliamentarian rules, the subcommittee shall not enter into any discourse with the public. There will be an opportunity to speak about a specific project being considered today immediately following the project presentation. Eric?
Do we have anybody signed up, Kylie, for general?
No general.
Okay.
Oh, that was for general?
Well, if you want to speak on one of the projects that's being considered today, we'll do that after that's presented. If you want to speak on something different,
Well, I won't speak on the project, but it'll be related to the project.
Well, that'll be after we present the project.
or now, because this is general public comment, we can go ahead and do it now.
I'll make it general instead of specific.
Okay, go ahead. You got 2 minutes.
Good morning. My name is George Freeman. I live at 1450 Bowman Road. And I really was going to try to get you to look at this picture that I have here of me 30 years ago. Because I'm here today because it seems that history keeps repeating itself. And because 30 years ago, in that picture, I'm standing in a subdivision along Rifle Range Road. And the reason I'm standing there because I'm president of the 6 Mile Neighborhood Association, and we were fighting the widening of Rifle Range Road. And to keep from talking specific, the results of the fight was the creation of Hungry Neck Boulevard. That's why we have Hungry Neck Boulevard today, is because we fought the widening of Rifle Range Road 30 years ago. And later on today, you're going to discuss a subject that involves Rifle Range Road. And I just wanted you to be aware that we've gone through this process one time already, but that time is about widening the road and adding sidewalks. We have the sidewalks today, but the road didn't get widened because it was unfair to the residents that live along Rifle Range Road. And I just wanted to give you that little bit of history about Rifle Range Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, staff update.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Dubuque, our program manager, is going to provide the introduction to projects for this cycle. Want to jump on up here, Chris?
Okay, so for the FY24 winter cycle, we have a total of 5 applications for your consideration. 2 of those projects being rural and 3 of them being urban. If all projects are approved, we're looking at 172.2 acres of land protected and 12,600 linear feet of corridor protected. These projects would total $6.9 million in total Greenbelt funds, with just over $8 million in total match, equaling 116%. All 5 of these projects are fee simple acquisitions with no conservation easement applications in this cycle. Here's an overview map of the 5 projects for your consideration. As you can see, the Harrell Family Project and Betsy Carson Nature Trail Phase 4 outside the urban growth boundary, with Lincolnville project up here to the northwest, and the 2 Mount Pleasant projects, all 5 somewhat centrally located within the county. For a funding overview for these 5 projects, we have the 2 rural projects, Betsy Carson Nature Trail Phase 4 and the Harrell Family Park project. Both of these total a $5.8 million in requested Greenbelt funds, with a balance, if approved, of $13.3 million, and plenty in the lifetime there. For the urban funds, the town of Lincolnville is requesting $126,246 in Greenbelt funds. This one would require forward spending of just under $26,000, as the current available allocation is sitting at $100,408. And based on their projected allocations going forward, if it were approved, it would take them a couple of years to be back in positive. And they're looking at $209,000 in their lifetime. For the town of Mount Pleasant, they're requesting $1 million in the town's urban funds for the 2 Mount Pleasant Way segments. And if approved, they would have a balance of $74,000 with plenty in the lifetime. So the total for the urban projects would be $1.1 million. And if approved, we'd be looking at a balance of $2.3 million with plenty in the lifetime. And for the total projects, again, all 5 projects would be requesting $6.9 million in Greenbelt funds. And if approved, would have a balance of $15.7 million. And just a reminder, the FY25 allocations will become available July 1st. Any questions on the funding? Okay. All right, with that, we'll head into the project's presentations. So I'll go over the 2 Mount Pleasant Way segments before I hand it over for their presentations, and there will be separate public comments and considerations for the 2 projects. So to start, the first Mount Pleasant Way segment for your consideration is Long Point Trail from I-526 to Whipple Road. The applicant is the town of Mount Pleasant. This is a fee simple acquisition and a corridor project. This section is 4,400 linear feet, and the town is requesting $250,000 out of the urban funds for the town with an 840% match. The next segment up for consideration would be the Rifle Range Trail from Venning Road to Bragg Drive. This also is a fee simple acquisition. This segment would be 8,200 linear feet, requesting $750,000 in the town's urban funds with a 200% match. And with that, I will hand it over to James Aton with the town of Mount Pleasant to present on these 2 projects.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I'll be recusing myself on both items.
Okay, so noted.
Okay, well, I'm not James Aton. I'm sorry. I'm Liz Boyles. I'm also with the town of Mount Pleasant. And thank you all for your time this morning to talk about Mount Pleasant Way. I know this is a familiar project to many of you because this is something we've been talking about for a number of funding cycles now. We're building Mount Pleasant Way, Mount Pleasant WA. It came out of our comprehensive plan back in 2019. It's a multi-purpose trail that covers one end of Mount Pleasant to the other, and is in the spirit of the spokes from your hubs and spokes model that the Greenbelt is encouraging for these sorts of multi-purpose trails. Provide opportunity for mobility options that do not include getting into a car, and also for the public to be able to enjoy the natural environment, learn a little bit more about their town as they pass through on foot or on bicycle instead of behind the wheel of a car. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Aton now for the first of our particular projects.
Good morning. So thank you for hearing our presentation on these 2 projects that we're applying for Greenbelt funds. As Liz mentioned, this is really the spokes portion of the Greenbelt's hubs and spokes, 47 miles of connected multi-use path through the town as part of the spine route. I believe currently the spokes portion of the Greenbelt is at 14% complete, which are all previously approved Mount Pleasant Way projects. So there's still a long way to go to meeting the goals of the Greenbelt on that. What we have shown here is the existing master plan. This shows not only the existing spine route in light green, but also secondary routes, quiet streets, and other pedestrian facilities which seamlessly tie into the proposed master plan. We've got a number of existing facilities in place right now, sort of scattered throughout the town, and of course, we're looking at several of these projects to expand that, as well as kind of fill gaps that exist. In addition to existing projects, we have imminent projects that are tied to some other to roadway projects, some as previously approved Greenbelt projects such as Mathis Ferry. And then most recently, and we'll discuss this later on in the presentation, the town was successful in a US DOT grant for Safe Streets and Roads for All for $16 million, which includes over 8 miles of Mount Pleasant Way. Both of these sections that we are applying for in this round are approved through that US DOT grant and based off of the 2023 Safety Action Plan that the town completed to identify these high-risk areas either through roadway characteristics or through existing safety data and crash history. So we've got the Long Point Trail, as mentioned, and the Rifle Range Trail as part of, again, both portions of the spine route, totaling about 2 miles of additional trail that we're pursuing, a little over 2 miles. So the first project we'll talk about, again, is the Long Point Trail, so 4,400 linear feet of multi-use path that will extend from I-526 to Whipple Road. If you recall from previous, one of our first Greenbelt applications was for Whipple Road to connect from Long Point to Mathis Ferries prior to the Lucy Beckham School being open. We are still working on that project, but this will tie seamlessly into that. On sort of plan left here, we have SCDOT's 526 and Long Point Interchange project, as well as the eventual 526 widening project, both which have committed to including multi-use path on those facilities. So for the bridge section, you'll have something very similar to what's on Wonders Way on the Ravenel Bridge. That will be on the new Wando Bridge. So this section here will, again, tie seamlessly into that and provide that connectivity to one of the town's largest commercial hubs, several schools in the area, as well as Seacoast Church, and eventually the Whipple Trail section. It is proposed to be on the Bell Hall Shopping Center side of the roadway in that existing power line easement, similar to our previous application for the Kinney Mile. A lot of parallels between that project and this one, both in front of a commercial site, both utilizing an overhead power line easement to move those pedestrians away from the roadway, create a safer environment, and also remove the existing sidewalk to offset those impervious impacts. We conducted several public outreach opportunities for this, a meeting that was held at the R.L. Jones Center, immediately adjacent to the site, on December 5th, and a survey that was open to the public and is still open, of which we've received a total of 131 responses, 119 in favor of this particular segment. I'm happy to answer any questions that the subcommittee may have on this project.
We do have one signed up for public comment for Long Point.
Okay.
Michael,
I don't have the
as
list.
chairman.
Got the list?
Mr. Michael Chairman.
Good morning, Michael German. I live at 1707 Snowden Road in the Snowden community in the Mount Pleasant area. We have some serious concerns. I think we addressed those concerns as much as possible during the previous meetings in terms of Mount Pleasant, who is our newest neighbor, wanting to do this project. Is going to directly affect our community. From what I understand, and just for clarity, that sidewalk is going to be on the
Bell Hall Shopping Center side.
Bell Hall Shopping Center side. That would directly impact the people in the Snound community, and most of them, a large track of that is not even in the town of Mount Pleasant. So I'm kind of disappointed in terms of where we are with this project. This project got this far down the road, and again, it's almost like it's on deaf ears. Nobody is listening to what we consider feasible in terms of putting a sidewalk through. And it's always at the point when it's already done. Had we been a part of this process, we would have told you it might work if you put it on the opposite side of Long Point Road. But for the most part, this sidewalk would have the greatest impact on the Snowden side of the Long Point Road connecting to Whipple Road. Am I correct on that? I mean,
It looks like
The
it's fun.
proposed path is on the shopping center side of the roadway.
that's what I want to clarify.
Seacoast side.
That's on the Seacoast side.
Yes, sir.
Even, I'm glad to hear that, and that's what I wanted, because I'm, on that. It's on that side, and the impact may be minimal to that, and we'll take that. I'll just kind of look more into that. But I think we may be able to support that. 2 minutes up. And I just wish that we had more input in some of these decisions that are being made that indirectly or directly affect the African American community of Snowden. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask a question real quick, just for reference? Where is the community, if we're looking at this map,
Yeah, on that
that
side.
you're here representing? On that side, got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And that's it for public comments for that one.
Okay. Any questions? Do I have a motion?
I motion for approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next. Thank you. Want to do the next one? Sure. Let's do the next one,
Liz will take care of it.
so you don't have to get up and down.
Sorry.
That's all right. So it leaves me something to say, We're going from venting to brag.
We lost
Not
a
that
little
you can-
formatting
Not
in
that you
the,
can see it on there, but
PowerPoint.
But thank you. Appreciate your time still. So the second project that we're bringing to you today is a section along Rifle Range Road from Venning Road to Bragg Drive on either side of, kind of ending up either side of the Isle of Palms connector. Again, as James mentioned, this is one of the segments that is funded through the Safe Streets for All grant. The construction, design and construction are funded through that grant to the tune of, I believe it's about $3.5 million for the section, for constructing the section from the Isle of Palms connector back. So again, we've had public meetings and public input opportunities since back in December when we decided to move forward with this project, specifically on this section of the trail. Mount Pleasant Way, as you know, has been in conversation for over 5 years at this point, with various opportunities for public comment along the way. But we've had a meeting from back in December on this, and then based upon the comments and questions that we received at that time, we held another meeting just last week to try to answer a lot of the questions from the community. And again, like the other Long Point Road project, this one has had a survey open since back in December. We've had 431 responses to this as of when we made the slide the other day, and with an 85% approval rating on the survey. So I mentioned that we had an additional meeting last week to try to answer questions. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay. So, excuse me, we jumped one. So one of the questions that we heard from the public meetings was, why rifle range? Well, so the first thing that was that brought this, made this an attractive project from our perspective was the fact that there are 16,000, not that you can read that at the moment, 16,000 residents live along Rifle Range Road. It's about 20% of the town's population, and 5,500 of those live along this specific stretch of the trail. As you know, as you saw in the earlier picture, Mount Pleasant Way is a town-wide project. It goes from one end of town to the other. This section is kind of right in the middle. We've been working on projects on the north end. We've been working on projects on the southern end. This project in between is beginning to try to connect those projects to create this the system where people can get from their homes to their destinations safely on a multi-year purpose path without having to get into a car. The fact that they need to be able to get from their homes or their doorsteps to their destinations is another reason why rifle range is important, because, as I said, 16,000 people live off of rifle range. If we only have opportunities in the areas where the schools and the businesses are, but they can't safely get from their homes, they're not going to be as well used. Again, the questions and concerns we heard had to do with the specific impacts of the project itself on the community and the properties where the trail, is going. As with all of our projects, as we get into the design process, which we're not there yet because we don't have the funding for the acquisition of the property. When we get into the design process is when we begin the detailed conversations with the property owners to make sure that we can mitigate and minimize the impacts on those property owners. With the concentration of population in this area and the results of the safety action plan that was done last summer, which indicated that there was a great deal, or there's concern about safety for pedestrians and bicyclists along this route. That was another reason that we chose to do the trail in this area. So again, talking about where on Rifle Range Road, this particular stretch is between Venning and Bragg. There's been, as we heard a moment ago, there have been some questions about why on this side of the road. So why on this side of the road as opposed to on the other side of the road? First of all, this is the west side of Rifle Range is where the sidewalk presently exists. This section also is where, when you see some pictures in a few minutes, this section is also where the utility easements are along Rifle Range Road. So there are already, water and sewer and power lines and utility communications equipment, everything on that side of the road. So this frontage along Rifle Range is already constrained in terms of what the property owners can use it for. So that was another reason to choose on the west side of Rifle Range Road. Third reason is the cost. If we build this, when we build this on the west side of Rifle Range Road, we anticipate the cost to be about $1.5 million to construct. If we were to move to the other side of the road, because the fact that on the east side of the road, there's a drainage ditch that would need to be piped, and so we would either need to pipe the ditch or move the trail behind the ditch, further impacting the property owners on that side. Instead of just needing 1 or 2 feet, perhaps on the west side, we might need 10, 15, 20 feet on the east side. So that, depending on which way we had to go with that, we could see the cost change from between up to $3.5 or $6 million to construct on the east side of the road. Mr. Freeman pointed out, the origins of Hungry Neck Boulevard a little while ago, which is a very important road for moving traffic around the town. There's no question about that. However, if you can't get to it safely from your residence, you're not going to be using the paths along Hungry Neck as frequently as you might see otherwise. The sections along Hungry Neck are presently being constructed. There are a number of sections already there. If you'll remember back to that image, number of sections there, a number of sections under construction there already. The whole concept of Mount Pleasant Way, again, is to make an opportunity for people to have an alternate transportation network from their home to wherever they're going. And if you can't get safely out of your home subdivision, your home neighborhood, it won't be as effective. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what might it look like. As you can see in these pictures, the utilities on this side of the road. We did, for our meeting last week with the citizens' neighborhoods, we did some additional renderings. So looking at I mentioned also a minute ago about mitigation opportunities. You know, the overall design for Mount Pleasant Way is a 10 to 12-foot path. However, we recognize that's the goal. There will be places, and for instance, along Mathis Ferry Road, where we've already got agreements in place, that we have to narrow it down because of the design, because of the constraints of the area, because of the houses or the residences or particular concerns. Maybe it's trees, maybe it's wetlands. We're going to have to be mindful and considerate of the environment and the neighborhoods that are there. So when we will be looking at, when we speak directly with the residents in the area, we'll be looking at maybe we need to reduce the path width for a segment to mitigate some of their concerns, to avoid, for instance, their driveway, the area where they park their cars. Maybe it has to be a little bit narrower to an 8-foot width in this area. There's some neighborhoods along this stretch that have landscaping and walls and like the big signs at the beginning of the neighborhood who have concerns about that. In those areas, we are able to fit in the 10-foot width path with a 6-foot buffer between it and the road. But should there be any impacts to the existing landscaping or features for the neighborhoods, that will be something that we will, of course, take into consideration and fix in the development of this project. Again, concerns about being too close to homes and existing fences. From what we can see, measuring in the field, the paths can fit. The question of making sure that the property owners, though, are comfortable with it is something we will still consider as we're moving forward with this project. So that's kind of where we are with this. You know the schedule better than I do, I'm sure. And back to that one, though, I do want to say, assuming that we have a favorable response to this request, we'll begin design later this summer with the funds that we've got from the Safe Streets for All grant. But that's just the beginning of our engagement individually with the homeowners and property owners in this area. And that's where we will get into how can we make this project work for everybody. So that process will take about 18 months is what we anticipate at this point in time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I got a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
I drove it last night and looked at it. Some of the utility poles, it seems, would be are those going to come down and then be buried, or?
They're gonna narrow.
I want to speak to that because he's the engineer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's something that we are in discussions with Berkeley Electric in this particular area. I think at this point, based off of our design sort of time frame and again, this SS4A grant that we're referencing has a 5-year period to be utilized. It's a use it or lose it situation. So we're still investigating the feasibility on whether or not those two can happen concurrently, the undergrounding of power as well as the design and construction of this path. If not, just like along Mathis Ferry and other sections of the trail, we will narrow during those portions to provide the necessary offset from those utility poles.
And is there any thought about, it is a busy road and some areas are pretty narrow, of putting guardrails or some kind of protective?
So that's something that we will absolutely consider as part of the design. There are a whole set of requirements when we're talking about guardrail from a safety standpoint that, yes, while there's a benefit to protecting those more vulnerable road users of bikes and pedestrians, if we don't have the proper offsets, which is about the same as a sidewalk, a 5-foot offset from the face of the guardrail to the roadway, you are now removing a recoverable area is what the term is called. If you run off the road, you have a chance to re-enter the road safely. You're hitting a guardrail and then being deflected into oncoming traffic, creating more, higher likelihood for head-on collisions. Mm-hmm. So these are things, when we get into the weeds of the design, that we'll consider where feasible.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do I understand correctly that all of that land that's being considered is already in an easement?
Yes, sir. So there's overhead Berkeley Electric easement, there's underground Dominion Gas, there are multiple communication companies in Mount Pleasant Water and Sewer within this area and where we would propose to place the path.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So just a follow-up on Beezer's question. I know you don't have a specific design done yet, but would you anticipate needing to have any of the design of this trail to go outside of that easement further into anybody's property along this way?
So at this point, and based off our experience with the Mathis Ferry project, where of course when we come to these presentations, we have a conservative amount estimated as what we would need. When we get into that design, again, just like Mathis Ferry, we've determined that there's much less impacts to the property owners. Of course, it's easier for us to ask for more money and return it if not needed, and versus coming back and requesting more. So yes, it is fully anticipated that in that it's a 20-foot easement that we will stay well within and outside of the property that is not currently encumbered by an easement.
And then just one more question. I think you had some dates there. After you get survey and have a, preliminary design done that's, based on real information that's on the ground, I assume that you have a plan in place to meet with residents and have additional public meetings to discuss and negotiate.
Yes, sir. So just like Mathis Ferry, which sees very similar parallels to this project, when we begin the design and we have the survey, that's when we would know what those impacts would be to accomplish that 10-foot trail. So not only will we reach out and have contact information for each individual property owner and see if they would like to meet on site to see boots on the ground what that would be, we also will host a minimum of 2 additional public meetings like we did for Mathis Ferry at iterations during that design at 30%, and then when we reach kind of right-of-way level plans. So there will be additional opportunity for public input and plenty of time, no matter how long it takes, to meet with residents individually on their specific properties to talk about impacts, mitigation, such as landscaping, fencing that could help ease those potential encroachments, but plenty of opportunity for public input.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just one note on the schedule here. Of course, the county finance and county council meetings, those are our target dates. That could always slide just a little bit, and if so, we'll let everybody know. And I know in the public meeting last week, Mr. Aton mentioned there's additional opportunities for public comment at all those meetings. That's except for County Finance Committee. No general or no public comments during that meeting. So just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you. Any comments?
Nakia Wickfall. Willie Jackson.
Oh, not me yet.
Jackson?
My name is Willie Jackson, and I live in 6 Mile community. I'm only here to support the 4 Mile community. That's it.
Could you pull your mic down just a little bit so we can hear you
Sorry.
better?
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm from the 6 Mile community, and I was just here to help represent the 4 Mile community. That's all. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you for being here.
Stella Ori.
My name is Nakia Wakefall, and I'm from the 6 Mile community. I was at the last meeting that we had in Mount Pleasant. I just want to thank Mount Pleasant for just wanting to, do what's best for the concern of all citizens. But at that meeting, we had several residents from the 4 Mile community who were going to be affected. From what I understand, and maybe I'm mistaken, it sounded like their property, some of their property was going to be affected by this project. I know some of the comments that were made, which I made myself. I walked the current sidewalk, and there's enough space for people to come, even bike riders who wants to ride on the sidewalk. All we walkers do is walk over to the side and let them walk on by. To spend this much money on a trail, personally, I don't see where we need the trail. I see where people are using the current sidewalk right now, and everybody's happy with it from from the comments that was made at the last meeting. And I know that Ms. Liz said that there are 400 and plus response and 80% approval, but out of the 80% approval, which one of those people would be affected by this trail? Are there anybody in the 80% who approved this project, would they be affected by the trail? Or this is just ordinary people who not even live in that area where they would be affected? I know if somebody wanted to take part of my property for a trail, I would probably have a problem with that. So I just want to say that on behalf of the people, especially the elderly lady that was there that was asking. She came right out, and everyone there at that project, at that meeting from that 4 mile community said that they did not want the trail. And I just wanted to say that because they could not be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
George Freeman.
Good morning again. George Freeman, 1450 Bowman Road. I don't know how familiar most of you are with Mount Pleasant. I know Ms. Farrell is, but...
I live on it.
Oh, you do?
Yes, sir.
Then you know about Center Lakes and Hidden Lakes subdivision. Ms. Boyle talked about connecting communities and the communities having access to the things near them. Those communities refused to connect to different areas when they were built. That's why I gave you that picture earlier to show you where I was standing. That's in the back of Hidden Lakes. They have the capability to connect to town center, but they refuse to connect to it. Center Lake also has that same access. A Sweetgrass Basket subdivision has a connection in the back of their subdivision. They have it with a gate on it so you can't get through. Only their residents can get through. The community, the people who have moved into this area that want to bike along Rifle Range Road will not allow you to go through their neighborhoods. The 4 mile, 6 mile, 2 mile, 4 mile community, we've been here much longer than these communities. We are happy with the situation we have, but since I only have a short time, I will try to talk about Hungry Neck. Hungry Neck is completed, except for the piece from 6 Mile to Hamlin Road. I live on Bowman Road. I ride the path that exists right now that was created from Bowman Road all the way to 6 Mile Road right now. In a few years, you'll be able to ride from 6 Mile Road to Hamlin Road all the way to Poche Bluff. The path exists right now. We do not need another path that runs parallel to Rifle Range Road in the area. All you're doing is disrupting the residents who have lived there a long time if you build this path right now. I am trying to get you to understand this is a moral issue that we have here today. We have a majority of people that have moved to Mount Pleasant that want these type things, but they do not care about the residents that have lived there for a long period of time. We have over 100,000 people in Mount Pleasant now. If you go and ask them to vote about whether they want this, they'll say they want it because it does not go through any of their communities. It only goes through the older communities. So I really want you to take that into consideration when you think of this project. This project is not needed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Stella Ori.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Stella Ori. I do not reside in the 4 Mile community. I grew up in the 6 Mile community. I live in the Hamlin community, but I do have property in the Rifle Range area. So as far as this project is concerned, we do not want it. We do not want it in our area. We do know that growth is always coming to an area, but I feel like this project does not have to be a part of growth in the community because, for one thing, it's too large. It should not be. That's almost like another road. So you have older people that lives around Rifle Range Road that actually has to try to get out of their driveway as it is now. And with the growth of the area, because every day every time I drive to some area, there's a new development going out. So it's hard already on the people to try to get onto Rifle Range Road from where they live. So if you add this project, it's going to be worse. And older people do not have to go through this. So we, as a community, we say no to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's it for public comment.
Okay. Any questions? With all due respect, my son was on the bicycle path last week, and a car pulling out the driveway hit him. If he had had another 5 foot, he might have been able to dodge it. In other words, he went over the hood, broke shoulder. Anyway, that's just an example from the bike being 5 foot to 10 foot. He might have had enough room to dodge the car backing out the driveway. Into that story. Okay.
I'd like to make a couple comments followed by a motion. Number one, it seems like this project exemplifies perfectly what we've been tasked to do relative to the corridors. The fact that there's easement in place, there's no condemnation issues. The space exists, and if we can do it carefully and with respect to people's concerns over the course of the next couple of months, even years, I motion that at least for the sake of this committee and the Greater Gap, I motion for approval.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Charles, comments?
Okay, the next application up for your consideration is the Lincolnville Cultural Heritage Welcome Center. The applicant is the town of Lincolnville. This is a fee simple acquisition, and if approved, will protect 2 acres. The town is requesting $126,247 in the town urban funds. Again, this would require $26,000 in forward spending. That would take 2 years to be back into the positive if approved. They have 112% match for the project. It is located in between Pickens Street and West Smith Street off of Lincoln Avenue right here. The parcel and the project would serve as a welcome center and trailhead for a greater historical recreation park. And just an item to note as we continue to monitor how a forward spending policy would affect some of these projects. This project would have been eligible for full funding if the board had adopted a forward spending policy, just to note. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Pranessa Seal, she's the president and founder of the Lincolnville Preservation and Historical Society. This is your
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity to tell you about Lincolnville. Lincolnville, I'm sure many of you know, is one of the oldest African-American towns in the state of South Carolina, founded in 1867 and incorporated in 1889, founded by Richard Harvey Cahen, who at the time was the pastor of Emmanuel AME Church. I'm going to move quickly through this. The National Park Service has included the town of Lincolnville as a part of the Reconstruction Era National Historic Network and the African American Civil Rights Network. The town of Lincolnville has also been designated as a historic settlement along the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor, which you know is a federal heritage national area of the United States. A couple of months ago, the town of Lincolnville created a resolution for the Lincolnville Cultural Heritage District. For the first time, we now have a historical district. However, that district encompasses the entire historical circle that was founded in 1867. So we are now really for the first time, and I am from Lincolnville, and my great-grandmother was an early settler after being enslaved on James Island. We are now really looking at our heritage because, as you know, many people in this area in South Carolina and truly across the United States are not familiar with Lincolnville. We're here today because we're building on the future of this historical town. We are very happy. Thank you, Greenbelt, for, I think it was in 2017, that we received funding for 2 acres. That's 11. I made a mistake there. TMS 64 and 11 to build a park of 2 acres. And so this request of ours is really building upon that. We made a grant to the National Park Service to come in and help us. That grant was approved, so now the National Park Service Trails and Recreation Department has granted us the opportunity to come, and they're designing a park for us with the Lincolnville Historic and Recreational Park. As you can see, we have 149, and that area is trying to be developed. In Lincolnville, like many other areas, we are fighting back with the developers because we have a lot of conservation land, and the ecosystem is tremendous and critical for this whole Low Country region in Lincolnville. So we now are partnering with the Low Country Land Trust to really secure more land and to make sure that we do not continue to lose our forests and our ecosystem, our marsh and our wetlands to developers. So we are trying to acquire 149 to go from a 2-acre park all the way to a 30-acre park. You will see that the conversation that we're having today, the funding that we're asking, is specifically for 376080014. That's the parcel we are talking about when we are creating this whole area as a national, as a historical park. And the National Park Service is with us on this vision to really design the whole structure. 15 is already owned by the town of Lincolnville. That's our historical fire department and our old jail. And we're hoping to build a library and a museum continuously looking at how do we now really create an oasis of this historical treasure. On the lot that we're talking about, 0014, this historic house, the Goldman's house, which was built in the 1800s, is still on the land, and that's where we want to create our welcome center. Now that we have a resolution, we have a historical district, we really want to really tell people about this historic town in South Carolina, in the Low Country, and in Charleston County. So not a part of the funding, the part of the funding that we're asking for is to secure this property, but we now have, with the partnership with the National Park Service and others, we will restore this building to make that the welcome center. Our partners, the National Park Service, the Low Country Land Trust, the Lincolnville Preservation Society, of which I'm the founder and the president. I provide the administrative support and oversight of the project in kind. Our partners are also the Conservation Voters of South Carolina and, of course, the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor, which will be providing support in areas of historical research and interpretive activities. A little brief history of Lincolnville. Lincolnville goes back to the 1833, pre-Civil War. The South Carolina Canal and Railway Company built the longest railway, and you're familiar with the Charleston-Hamburg line. At that time was known as Pump Pond, and it came through Lincolnville, which we know today. If you read the history of the Charleston-Hamburg line, it tells you that it had 12 water stops. One of those water stops, they say, was Pump Pond, and today that is Lincolnville. And now we know why, because now we're so involved with conservation and making sure that the developers do not continue to take our forests and our lands and our wetlands. Now we know why the engineers back in 1833 saw that this was a very critical spot for the Pump Pond. So Lincolnville goes back to pre-Civil War. Today we have 3 historical churches. Ebenezer, our first church, Ebenezer AME Church, founded by Reverend Cain, Wesley Methodist Church, and Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church, and they are all still functional on Sunday mornings. We have schools. We have the Rosenwald School, Lincolnville Rosenwald School, of which I attended. It's now a part of the state is creating a Rosenwald Trail of connecting the 44 Rosenwald schools that still exist. Their buildings, of course, they're not in operation. Out of 500 Rosenwald schools in the state, 400 exist. Lincolnville will be one of the first 6 Rosenwald schools that will be on that southern trail. But Rosenwald School, that was not our first school. The first school was built in 1899, the Williams Graded School. We celebrated our 100th anniversary last year. We have 2 historical African-American burial grounds and Bible Sojourn Cemetery, and we have people there that are resting, dating back to the Civil War, of course, definitely Reconstruction, and some of our founders are there as well. We have over 50 historical homes in Lincolnville. That home is the Keller home. It was built in the 1800s and is right now eligible for a national marker. Historical places, our old jail. We only had the jail in the 1900s only had one jail. So if you had 2, we were overcrowded. Only had 1 jail, and that is still standing. And if you couldn't get home at night, you could just go and lay down in the jail and get up in the morning and go on home. Miss Charlotte Riley. I'm not asking you to read all of this, but she is truly an icon that we have discovered. She too was born enslaved, came up to Lincolnville as a part of, she was one of the fundraisers for Emmanuel AME Church, and she moved to Reverend Cain's little town up the road 20 miles up from Charleston. She is the first female preacher of any race. She's the first female preacher in the South, and her story is just incredible. She was the 2nd Postmaster General of Lincolnville, and President Roosevelt was the first U.S. president to come to Charleston after the Civil War. She actually wrote him a letter and said, when you come to Charleston, please come up to Lincolnville, and he did. Her story is incredible. You can now find her book, A Mysterious Life of Miss Charlotte Riley of Lincolnville, and you can find it on Amazon. John Dott Library, and as you know, John Dott, there's a library in Charleston on King Street named after him. His family still owns land in Lincolnville. He is the founder of Burke High School. David Riley Hill, who was the son of Charlotte Riley, he was the first principal of Burke, and that happened to be the first African-American principal of any public school in the nation, which was Burke High School. He married, David married Maddie Seabrook, and their great-grandson, August 23rd last year, they named a street after David Hill, the Hill Place on Spring and St. Philip Street, named a street, the Hill Place Street. And that happened, the descendants of Charlotte Riley got a street named after them just a few months ago. The longevity of Lincolnville, the longevity of its history is still in place in Lincolnville, and we really want to tell this story. Lincolnville, located in Charleston County, right on the line of Dorchester County, it has been left behind. It has not benefited from the economic development and historical resources surrounding our neighborhoods. And so this is what we want to do with funding to really move, and we're gathering support around the park, which will be a historical recreation park, which will tell the story of Lincolnville, and with our Welcome Center. So thank you for your support, and we hope that you will approve our application for funding. Thank you.
No public comments.
Any questions?
I'd just like to say, well done on the partnerships that you've created. It goes a long way up here. And also, thank you for your passion and your time for wanting to tell this story. It's an important one to tell. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I would move that we approve the project.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Great story.
Okay, next up for your consideration is the Harrell Family Park project. The applicant is the town of Megget. It's a fee simple acquisition, and if approved, would result in 161.5 acres of land protected. The town is requesting $4,976,000 in rural funds with a 78% match. These parcels are located at the corner of Church Flats and Gibson Road. Due to the pressure of development on this parcel, or these parcels, Open Space Institute will step in and purchase this property, much like the Lake Margaret project. And if approved, the town of Megget will then purchase the property from OSI to create a public park. And we have Stephanie Smith and Tom Hodo representing the town of Megget here to present.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Smith. I'm the town administrator with Maggot. And here with me today is one of our council members, Tom Hutto, and with the Open Space Institute, Patrick Moore. I am going to break one of my rules that I'm going to read today because I'm very passionate about this and I don't want to go off on a tangent. All right, let's see. The Harrell Family Park is an exciting project that the town of Megget has the opportunity to share with all of Charleston County residents and their visitors. Before diving into our discussion topics today, I'd like to do a quick project overview. In front of you is a packet with detailed information, including our project budget, our partnership with the Open Space Institute, known to us as OSI, and Megget's mission to preserve passive green space. The town of Megget is requesting a little under $5 million from the rural funds available through the Charleston County Greenbelt program. $4.5 million will go towards the $7 million purchase of the Harrell Family Park, and the remainder will be applied to allowable minor improvements and other closing costs. OSI has agreed to purchase the Harrell Family Trust land ahead of our approved grant funding, protecting it from developers of high-end housing, golf courses, and the permanent loss of public access. During the January Megget Council meeting, a memorandum of agreement was approved by Council and signed by Mayor Harrington. This agreement allows the town and OSI the ability to work together, securing the Harrell Family Park as a passive green space in perpetuity. The closing date for OSI to purchase the land is April 30th. At that time, OSI will put forth $3 million of their dollars and finance $4 million. The town will be responsible to pay the estimated $18,000 a month interest payments that will come due. We are anticipating 4 to 6 of those payments at $72,000 to $108,000. Megget leadership and residents widely support the preservation of passive green space. In fact, this project has widespread excitement and support from neighboring parcels and the community members. Pictured here are examples of attractive walk-through gates at both Roxbury Park and the Reserve at Megget, allowing 7-day-a-week access while protecting the grounds from unauthorized motor vehicles. Also pictured are examples of informational and directional signage at both parks and our 3,500 square foot pavilion at Roxbury Park. All the projects seen here are grant-supported projects, including such programs as the Greenbelt Program, South Carolina Conservation Bank, PARD, and the Land Water Conservation Fund. What is most exciting about the existing preserved green spaces in this project, they all have the ability to now connect through green and blue trails. Discussion topics today: development plans, connectivity, community benefits, and Councilmember Tom Hutto will discuss our unique opportunity. The town's development plan comprises of 4 phases. Phase 1 being the soonest to be completed, and Phase 4 not having a completion date at this time. Phase 1 includes preparing the park public access. This phase anticipates to be completed within 6 to 12 months after purchase and will include information and directional signage, fencing, and gates to make the park easy to navigate by our daily visitors. The park will be open 7 days a week from sunup to sundown. Phase 2 includes the development of a new 2.5 to 3 mile trail system that will weave along the property line under the towering pines and beautiful oak trees. This phase is expected to cost more than $20,000. As a result, the town's procurement policy will come into play, so we do anticipate this project being able to be completed within 12 to 18 months after purchase. Phase 3 is connectivity and what we are most excited about. This phase includes the development and establishment of blue and green trails. It is anticipated this phase will be completed 18 to 24 months after purchase. Phase 4, the future of Harrell Family Park. One of the most common conversations I have with our residents is how there is no public access where you can just run and play or have a fun flag football game. Public open spaces in our community are very limited and lack the wide open space to just run and have fun. As growth comes to our neighboring towns, the need for active recreation locations will be a hot topic. The town of Meggett plans to maintain the standards of a fully passive park while introducing active recreation facilities such as disc golf, basketball, tennis, and pickleball courts. We must put funding into our parks to allow them to grow and be successful. Similar to completed projects at Roxbury Park, town leadership and staff will continue to research and apply for grant funding. We'll continue to apply for grant funding such as the PARD and the Land and Water Conservation Fund grants, continue to talk with our local and state representatives for funding, and the town will continue to be fiscally mindful and budget for future developments under the budget line item special project funds. Phase 3 of our development plan is the development of our blue and green trails. The blue line represented in this image is the planned blue trail, Meggett To-Do Trail. The future addition of this trail will provide visitors with the opportunity to enjoy kayaking and paddleboarding along the Oyster House Creek and beyond. The white dash in this image above represents the proposed green trail, the Morning Glory Trail, to connect the reserve at Meggett to Harrell Family Park. The town of Meggett has already been allocated $460,000 in the 2023 state budget to develop sidewalks along Church Flats. These funds will be used towards the Morning Glory Trail. Town leadership is currently working with engineering organizations to perform preliminary designs. Community benefits. I have a long list and I could read it out to you. They make up this word cloud. I could even add more benefits right now. In short, this park provides the benefit we took for granted as children. We are preserving a lifestyle, an experience. We are bringing back our childhood memories for our children and grandchildren. Green open spaces, outdoor land and water activities, floodwater storage, functioning ecosystems, wildlife habitats, and enhanced water quality are only the tip of the iceberg of what this 162 acres preserved will benefit this community. I now present Tom Hutto.
Thank you, Stephanie. Pretty tough act to follow, the last two ladies, so I'm going to be brief. I thought the Lincolnville presentation was quite good as well. I just want to thank you guys for the support you've shown the town of Meggett over the years. We value the partnership we have with the county and with the Greenbelt program. As Stephanie discussed, we have a unique opportunity to purchase this property. It's it is actually probably the last waterfront property of this nature in this area of town. Hollywood's exploding, Ravenel's exploding, and the citizens of those areas, and all Charleston County citizens, will benefit from having more access to the waterfront. There's an existing dock on the property that can be used as soon as we can purchase the property and open it. These chances won't come again. Developers are chomping at the bit, and only by the generosity of the Harrell family are we even standing here. We work with Patrick at the Open Space Institute to develop an option to purchase the property at some risk to both organizations. But the owners were kind enough to give us a $630,000 discount on the appraised value, and I can do the math to tell you that's not, the appraisal's very reasonable. You can put over 30 waterfront houses out there and a whole bunch more on the interior, and it'll be another, some of the folks here were talking about gated subdivision. I don't know that it'll be gated, but it certainly won't be accessible to the public. With all that said, this is the town's going to put in hundreds of thousands of dollars in perpetual management. We have a good track record for this, and I would just respectfully ask for your support, and we're happy to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
I think this is related. Is Roxbury Park open now? The
Yes.
days it's supposed to be?
It's been open, and it's now open 7 days a week. We put in
Okay.
new fencing and developed a new security system in order to open it 7 days a week.
Thank
And
you.
I think Eric's staff, Chris, can confirm that.
Yeah, just, clarification on that. So how you accessed it before is still fully open on the weekend. But during the week, there's now a parking area up front so that folks aren't able to drive back in there, and it helps with some of the town's concerns about vandalism and theft and things like that during the week when they don't really have eyes out there, but it is open now 7 days a week. Sorry, go ahead.
Who did the appraisal?
Charleston Appraisal Services.
Charleston Appraisal Services.
Can you talk a little bit about the management capability that you have within the city? And thinking about what Nora just asked about Roxbury, I don't know what happened to that one piece of land that was connecting to Hollywood, Meggett to Hollywood. Has that been worked on? And I just, who will be managing this?
Yes, sir. That tract is open, and as far as management, that we have a gentleman who works for us 4 days a week to maintain all our grounds, so they're always well maintained. I think the county staff can confirm that. As far as development, I've done quite a bit of it. I happily retired about 98% from being a full-time environmental engineering consultant with GEL Engineering just this past June. So I have a lot more time to put in it. And we're looking at budgeting additional funds for additional personnel to help with the management of the parks. There's also a house on the Harrell tract where we anticipate housing a full-time DNR, perhaps a DNR staff member for security and cutting the fields. So that's part of our budget, is to provide additional funding for park management. And I think the staff can say, other than the question of opening Roxbury every day of the week, we're hitting all our marks for all our grants.
And that was a recent development, just just earlier this
Well, I
month.
worked with Charleston County PRC to get ideas on how to open the park and maintain good security.
Okay. Yeah, that was my next question on this. This seems like a pretty big piece of property. Does Charleston County Parks, are you talking to them at all about, is there room for them to come in and help maintain some of the things like docks take time and money and, to stay up to date and safe?
We haven't asked PRC. I mean, I have a pleasant relationship with Kevin Bowie, Matt Mullenhauer. See him, talk to him pretty routinely in my capacity both at the town of Meggett and on the board of the Low Country Land Trust.
Okay.
This is kind of what I've done for my whole career, is, rather than, it's not parks per se, but permitting docks, permitting dredging, doing studies on, hey, the Inner Harbor, you want to dredge the Inner Harbor in Georgetown, that kind of thing's in my career.
Okay.
So I've got time, and we're putting more resources into it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, this project, if you think back to our impervious surface limit policy, because they're reserving the right for, phase 3 to maybe do athletic fields and things like that. This would not fall under that because it triggers that active component. But we have talked with the town, and if it were a purely passive park, their limit would be 3.13 acres of impervious surface on the property. And I believe they are open to maintaining that as part of a condition, should you approve it.
We are, I'm still working a little bit, working on a park design for another park in the North Charleston area. And we feel that if we did have active fields, we don't know what the future brings, except it's bringing lots of development, and the citizens are going to need places to recreate and to be exposed to the outdoors. Over 3 acres should be plenty. We don't have any anticipation of putting in paved parking. I mean, you've got handicapped issues to comply with ADA, but most of, even what I envision for active recreation, I can't see how I get past 3 acres of paving or roofs. We've been working quite a bit on that recently, in fact.
Any questions? Any motions?
Well, I have one more question. Is it your intent to truly get to that step 4 where you have active fields and active pickleball and all that stuff, or is that kind of just like an option?
I would put that as an option. It's not based on the advice of staff, we don't want to preclude ourselves for what may need to take place in 10 or 20 years. There are thousands of houses being built in that area, and if the demand is such that some additional, you bring your family out there, you want to have some additional opportunities, whether it's a basketball court or pickleball. We don't want to preclude ourselves of that, but that's not a given. It's really an opportunity to meet the demand of Charleston County residents, frankly.
And that process of deciding that would just come through the Megget Town Council?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we've got a long and strong council. If you're not familiar with them, we've been at this a while.
And Mr. Hutto's correct. Staff does encourage applicants to include anything that they might envision for that property, because as you know, if it's not included in the grant agreement, then they have to come back for amendments well down the road.
A question related to that. If we make a recommendation for approval, are you suggesting that we should add the condition regarding the acreage and the impervious surface?
That would be staff's recommendation.
Well, I'll move for approval with staff's recommendation with the condition regarding the acreage and the impervious surface.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you, ladies, gentlemen. We appreciate it a lot, and it'll be a very special place for everyone in Charleston County.
We'll come visit.
Okay, last but not least, we have the Betsy Carrison Nature Trail Phase 4 for your consideration. The applicant is the Kiowa Island Natural Habitat Conservancy. It's a fee simple acquisition. If approved, it would protect 8.6 acres. They are requesting $861,200 in rural funds with a 53% match. You'll see this property is between phases 3 and phase 2 of the Nature Trail project, which have already been approved. This parcel does have a home on the property, appraised at $400,000. The request of Greenbelt funds is to cover the cost of the land. The seller has requested to stay on the property, living in the home for no more than a year past closing, as he builds a new residence out in Guatemala. And I will hand it over to Kali Farah with the Conservancy to present this project.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Yes, today we are going to be presenting to you Phase 4 of this Betsy Carrison Nature Trail system. This is an exciting opportunity to connect those that we've presented to you beforehand and have been approved. Today I've also got Sean Cannon to help answer any questions you might have. But you can jump right into it. Just as a reminder, we are an accredited nonprofit land trust who historically worked on Key Island but have now branched out into Johns Island, Seabrook, Wadmalaw area as it falls within the local watershed. Over the past year or two, our acreage under preservation has increased significantly. We're up over just over 3,860 acres, and we've been accredited since 2017. So just an overview again of our focal areas is Kiowa Island, Seabrook. As we move into Johns Island, we're focused on Betsy Harrison Parkway and Bohicket and River Road. So this property in particular is a unique opportunity to be able to create contiguous land preservation, prevent fragmentation of our wildlife corridor and the nature trail system. This property has been on our radar ever since we were working on phases 2 and 3, and the landowner has been nice enough to be able to work with us so that we could do to be able to acquire this land and make it a part of this fluid trail system. It is just over 8.5 acres. It does include another hummock island as well. It's consistent vegetation with what's surrounding this area. It's a maritime forest setting, and it's going to be a great opportunity for people to be able to enjoy the natural green space. So these are just some few pictures of the property. As you come in on the roadway, it's a pervious material driveway coming through with a dense canopy overhead. And as we go through, this is some of the marsh vegetation going from the mainland to the hummock island. This is just a site visit looking back over the hummock island. The hummock island's around 2 acres. It's very large in size. And then we've just some more pictures of the vegetation inside. This is the home structure on site. It is about 3,600 square feet. It's a large home. It's a nice home. We thought destroying this would just not be an option. We wanted to find a better use for this building. And so we've got different ideas for what it could and will be, starting with intern housing, potential meeting space for the public. And this will be renovated to be able to comply with ADA and make sure it's accessible to all. And so now as we fit this into the overall scheme, this is how it plays into phases 2 and 3. The vehicular access that would be limited would be coming down the main stretch. Again, all parking to this trail system would be down on phase 3 again. And so there would be a slight trail that would come off of and around, so it's not crossing at the end of the driveway. This is our mixed use indoor space opportunity here. And you can see how it just provides fluid connectivity. We did not want to put a boardwalk out to this hummock island. We did on phase 2, but for this one, we wanted to have a safe space for wildlife and have just a place where wildlife can reside. Just some historical significance. Again, you can see how this property plays right into what was the Battle of Haulover Creek, or Haulover Cut, where Union and Confederate troops did migrate up and down this corridor. So along with the wildlife benefits, it also protects historical and cultural significance as well. But it's all about connecting people to the land. Again, everything that we're doing is first and foremost for wildlife, but there's a unique opportunity to allow people to be able to be immersed in this area and have access to green space, especially in an area that's highly pressured with development. We do see an extensive trail system going in on this property. We, again, applied for the 5-year term period to be able to have completion on the project. But this is just some examples of what you would kind of see out there for signage, notating the vegetation and local flora and fauna. Again, there is an already existing sidewalk along Betsy Harrison Parkway that would give you access into each of the properties. Again, parking would be at phase 3 and allow for safe pedestrian access to phase 4. And so we did do a survey. We had just under 400 people participate with an extremely high support for this. And so we do know that there's support for wanting to get into passive green space around the island. And this was sent out through various platforms that we use, and was open to Seabrook, Johns Island, Kiowa, anybody in Charleston County there. And again, just one more overview of protected lands and how this fits into contiguous land preservation. Everything that's highlighted has been preserved either by us or another organization or is pending conservation, such as Phase 4. And then we have Phase 1 down below. I know that there was a question at the last meeting about the status of Phase 2 and Phase 3. Those have since been closed out. Those deed grant agreements have been re-recorded, so everything has been completed there. And so I kind of wanted to just take a moment to show y'all that conservation is already at work. Since this is at Phase 3, which was the site of the Rosebank farm stand, since that farm stand has left and we've taken down the fencing around Phase 3, we're starting to see wildlife that's never used it before. The owners of the farm stand and the neighboring property owner said they've never seen turkeys on that property, and now we're starting to see them out there again. So thank you all for everything that you've done with us so far, and we're excited for another opportunity to further on this conservation effort. And so I'm happy to, and I'd also like to mention too, the fact that we have partnered with the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce and the Foundation as to help tell the story of this land and further just the historical and cultural significance of these properties. So with that, I'd like to open up for questions.
Where do you stand on Phase 1 and 2 with regard to public access? Is it available at this point, or is it just kind of closed and waiting?
Yeah, so for Phase 2 and Phase 3, those are not open to the public yet. We are in the process. We've just taken down the fence. Next will be the demolition of the buildings, and then adding the parking spaces at Phase 3 so everyone can access the properties. But we're currently working with Greenbelt and the county for an overall site plan, and I'll let you go ahead and talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we've been also allowing people by request. We tour them around the property, but right now, they're, with the buildings still being there and removal of the fence, it's not really safe at Phase 3 to have complete public access. But we are working on hiring a planning firm and an architect that will help with the master planning to make sure that it's the best use of the site with the best public access, limited, wildlife impact. And so we are hopefully going to be signing a proposal with one of the firms in the next few weeks, and the actual planning process will occur to make sure, access for parking, the entryway for access, vehicular access will not, impact any of the trails. And so we're hiring the experts to help us along with the process, and we'll be including stakeholder engagement right from the start of the planning and design. So these are all conceptual designs that we've created internally, but we want to make sure they work feasibly within the limitations of the county regulations, as well as that they're really benefiting the public and the people in the area, that it's a park that's that's really going to provide the needs of the community.
I'll just add on to that. They have reached out to planning and zoning and starting work on their site plan. And it's uncovered a few issues with our planning and zoning rules and regulations where it would have required a lot of clearing on site to accommodate parking. So we're working with our planning and zoning department right now to amend some of that to keep the integrity of the purpose of the purchase, Greenbelt preservation, and not having to remove all those trees for parking. So there's some changes that'll be going through, some amendments to the planning and zoning code that'll be going through late spring, early summer to address that. And I believe they'll probably wait until those go through to make their process a little more streamlined.
And they have that time, right? We were well within our time window. And from the staff perspective,
I believe all your projects are 1 to 5 years.
That's
for
correct.
public access is what they selected on the applications.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I really appreciate your packages. They're very informative and laid out, and I learn a lot every time I read them. So I'm happy to make a motion for approval.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right, and that's it for project presentations today. Just a reminder, Greenbelt Advisory Board will take up your recommendations on April 10th, right here in this room at 10 a.m.
say?
Yes, ma'am.
Today is our esteemed chair, Charlie Salmonson's birthday.
Happy birthday, Mr. Chairman.
Happy birthday.
Charlie.
What?